ID Alliance presents this week's short attention span sales tip. Hey everyone, it's Bill Farquharson. The great poet and philosopher Jimmy Buffett has a great song called "It's My Job." And it's on one of his lesser known albums. I don't know if it's Changes in Attitudes, Changes in Latitudes, or just exactly what it is. But anyway, it's a song about, he starts off by saying, he's kind of bummed out and he's sitting on the sidewalk and this street sweeper comes by. And this guy is just happy. And Jimmy Buffett says to him, "What are you so happy about? You're a street sweeper." And the man says, "It's my job." And he talks about his uncle. And he says, "My uncle's a banker. My uncle's always dour and serious." And he said, why do you do it that? Why do you live your life that way? And his uncle said, "It's my job. It's my job to be worried." It's amazing to me as a sales coach how I can pick off the attitude that people have, their emotions, their feelings that they're having, simply by sitting here and listening and hearing what's behind the comment, what's behind their words. Sales reps who are really struggling and they come to the call and they talk to me and, "Gosh, things are really going hard, Bill, and I'm not having any success." And I think to myself, your customers can hear this. They can hear this in your voice. You ever made a sale and your voice is way up here? You're really excited. Well, what a great time to make a sales call. It's in your voice. And I'll go into this a little bit in the deeper dive, but I had a business call recently, a business trip recently, where I had two different experiences with two different Uber drivers. And one of them picked me up and the other one dropped me off. And they were just so totally different. Gang, your customers can hear every mood you are in. This is why it's a great idea to exercise in the morning, like I did this morning. Can you tell? Where you get those, all the blood flowing and you're in a great mood. If you're not in a good mood, stay away from people, especially your customers. You want to make certain you're prospecting when you have a high energy level and you've got some great thoughts happening in your head. All right, so listen, let's take a deeper dive on this thing. Let me tell you about this business trip. So this one Uber driver picked me up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we were driving over to the hotel, and he was just miserable. He hated Uber. He hated his job. He hated the fact that his 10 children weren't living with him because he couldn't afford to, and he just hated it and hated it and hated it. And I was sitting there looking at my watch going, "Get me out of this thing. Oh my God." It was miserable. It was a miserable ride. He hated Uber. He hated the fact that he couldn't even afford the gas for this trip, he said. I'm like, wait a minute, how does that math work? So I got dropped off at the hotel, and it was like I had to get to the room and just take a towel and just kind of wave it over my head and get me out from under that dark cloud. So I gave my presentation. I call up Uber and they pick me back up and they're taking me back to the airport. And this young man was just delightful. All right. Now keep in mind, they're making the exact same amount of money going back and forth, right? He was happy to be able to make some extra money. He was getting married soon. He wanted to start his own business. And on he went about the optimism, the great things in his life. And I'll bet he could have found the same exact number of ways. I don't think he had 10 kids, but I think he could have found some things to complain about. We all have things to complain about. But A, nobody wants to hear it. And B, it brings everybody down. And C, it affects those around you. There's a book that I was talking about last week called Integrity by Henry Cloud. And in the book, he says, look, we are all on a boat. We're all on our own boat, right? And we're bombing down the waterways like this. And everybody else in our life is behind us. And if we look over the shoulder, some people are water skiing, and they're zipping back and forth and they're going over the waves and they're, doing their tricks and everything else. And others are drowning. And he gives some great stories about doing kind of a 360 analysis to find out how others are working with you. I've got a very good friend on the Upper East Side of New York named Deanne. And Deanne actually met Dr. Cloud and got me an autographed copy of his book. And she said, I did a 360. And she's an amazing woman. She's very upbeat, very positive, and a woman of deep faith and just wonderful. I've known her for 30 plus years. And she said, I was really surprised to find out that not everybody's water skiing behind me, that there's a few people that are drowning. And so much of this just has to do with the attitude that we bring. This is a choice. This is your choice that you choose every single day to have a bad attitude, a difficult, a struggling attitude where you are you're angry at this, and you're mad at production, and your boss is being a jerk, and your customers aren't buying enough from you. And that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're in a spiral. You also have the choice to look at opportunity. The opportunity that you have to work with your customers. How grateful you ought to be when somebody gives you an order. Just sheer gratitude. Thank you for the business. I appreciate it. And that goes an awfully long way. You know what? I can hear every emotion in my coaching clients, and I often ask them, what's going on? What am I hearing in your voice? And I've had some very interesting discoveries that, you got a speeding ticket on the way to work, or your girlfriend broke up with you, or your neighbor ran over your cat with a lawnmower or something. You're bringing all of this baggage to your sales calls, and it's needless. This is something that, it's a mindset that you can put yourself in. And I've got this let me pull this off the board here. I've got this little sheet of reminders of things that I want to make certain that I'm bringing to the table every single day. Every single day I read this at the beginning. When I'm having a difficult day, I go back and I read it again, and then I add to it. These are just little mantras, little feelings, little thoughts that help me to keep my attitude up, so that no one's saying, oh, that was a lousy sales call, or coaching call. Bill was in a bad mood. You choose the attitude that you bring. People behind you can be either water skiing or they can be drowning. And there's a lot of other factors in that, but the one that is within your control to change every single day is how you approach your job. If you don't like your job, quit. Go find something else. Otherwise, be determined to do the absolute best that you can and to bring the absolute best attitude that you can to your job, because you will affect others. And the number one reason why people do business with you is your sales ability. And part of that is that they trust you. And part of that is that they like you. And you are someone that they want to be around. And this all starts with that simple choice. So choose wisely and make certain that you are bringing the right kind of optimism to your job in sales. This too is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Thanks. Have a great selling week. And I'll talk to you next week.